Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we will be having our first Python programming lesson. We have four main objectives. First, we'll get a solid understanding of the basics of Python, including what it is and where it's used. Next, we'll learn how to run Python programs in both interactive and script modes. Then, we'll dive into identifying and correcting syntax errors, which are common mistakes that can prevent your code from running. Finally, we'll master the rules for naming and using variables in Python. Let's get started. So, what is Python? Well, Python is a widely used programming language known for its simplicity and versatility. It's popular because it's easy to learn and can be used for a variety of applications. For instance, in web development, Python helps build websites and web applications. In games development, it's used to create games like Civilization 4. Data scientists use Python to analyze data for companies like Google, and it's also a favorite in educational settings for teaching programming concepts. Python's readability and straightforward syntax make it an excellent choice for beginners and professionals alike. Now, there are two main ways to run Python programs: interactive mode and script mode. In interactive mode, you type commands directly into the Python interpreter. And once you finish writing your code and press enter, it executes the code immediately. For example, if you have a look at or type print and then within the brackets open your speech marks and type the words hello world, Python will display hello world right away. Now, this mode is great for testing small pieces of code. On the other hand, script mode involves writing your code first in a file and then running it later. Script mode will let you write larger pieces of code. It will also allow you to save the code and run the program later. Now, when you save your program, it must be saved with a .py extension, like hello.py, and then you can run the program or execute it. This code is useful for writing longer programs that you want to save and run multiple times. Syntax errors are mistakes in your code that prevent it from running correctly. These errors occur when code doesn't follow the rules of the Python language. For instance, if you have a look at the example on the screen, we can see that one of the examples there has a spelling mistake. The first example, we have spelled print incorrectly. So Python won't understand the command and will throw an error. To fix syntax errors, carefully read the error message provided by Python, which usually points out where the mistake is. Then correct the error and try running your code again. If you have corrected it the way it should be, your code should run or your program should run. Variables are essential in programming as they store information that your program can use. When naming variables in Python, there are a few rules to follow. You can use letters, numbers, and underscores, but the name must start with a letter or an underscore. So the name must start with a letter or an underscore, not a number. Additionally, avoid using reserved words like class or def as variable names. For instance, age, first name, and score1 are all valid variable names, while first underscore place and class are not. Following these rules helps keep your code clear and error-free. A variable in Python acts like a container that holds information. You can store different types of data in variables, such as numbers, text, and more. For instance, you can create a variable to store a name with name equals Alice, an age with age equals 13, or a score with score equals 95.5. Using variables makes your code more flexible and easier to manage, as you can change the values stored in them without altering the rest of your program. Comments are notes you add to your code to explain what it does. They start with a hashtag symbol and are ignored by Python when the code runs. Comments are incredibly useful for making your code easier to understand, both for yourself and others who might read it later. For example, you might write hashtag this program prints a greeting before a line of code that prints hello world. Using comments effectively can save you a lot of time and confusion when revisiting your code in the future. IDLE is an integrated development environment, or IDE. This is used for Python and provides a user-friendly interface for writing and running Python code. It has two main modes, interactive and script. In interactive mode, you type commands and see the results immediately, which is great for testing and experimenting. In script mode, you write and save your program to run later, which is ideal for developing more complex projects. IDLE makes it easy to write, test, and debug your Python code. One of the first programs many people write when learning a new programming language is the Hello World program. This simple program prints Hello World to the screen and helps you get familiar with the basics of the language. To write this program in Python, open IDLE and then type print, open bracket, and open a speech mark, hello, followed by a comma, and then the world, then close your speech mark and close your bracket. Write this in interactive mode and press enter. You'll see the text Hello World displayed immediately. This exercise introduces you to the syntax and structure of Python code. You may want to pause the video at this stage and have a go at writing the Hello World program in Python using the IDLE. Syntax errors are common when you're learning to code, but understanding how to identify and fix them is crucial. Some typical syntax errors include misspelling commands, like typing prit and then with an end instead of print. Missing quotes around strings, like print and then hello world in the brackets without the speech marks, and incorrect capitalization, like the word print with a capital P instead of writing print in lowercase. To debug these errors, read the error message provided by Python, which usually indicates where the mistake is. Then correct the error and try running your code again. Debugging is the process of finding and fixing errors in your code. When you encounter an error, Python provides an error message that helps you understand what went wrong. For example, if you type prit n, open bracket, and then in your speech marks, hello world, and then you close your speech marks and you close your bracket, instead of the correct way of writing print with print, opening your bracket, hello world, and then closing your bracket, Python will display an error message indicating name error. By carefully reading these messages, you can identify the mistake, correct it, and run your code again. Debugging is an essential skill for any programmer. Take a moment to analyze the examples that you can see on the screen at the moment. One with the correct example and one with the incorrect example of how to write the Hello World program. The term bug in programming comes from a real-life incident in 1947 when a moth was found inside a computer, causing it to malfunction. This incident led to the use of the term bug to describe errors or glitches in software. Understanding the history of this term adds a bit of fun trivia to your programming knowledge and reminds us that even the earliest computers faced challenges similar to those we encounter today. To write and run a Python program in script mode, follow the steps that you can see on the screen. You will need to have idle installed. Click on File once you've opened it, and then New File to open up a fresh page on as a new script for you to start programming. You may want to pause the video while you have a go at these steps. Or alternatively, you can have a go one by one at the end once you finish watching the video. Variables are fundamental in programming as they store information that your program can use. Think of a variable as a box where you can keep things. For example, you can store a name with name equals Bob, an age with age equals 14, or a height with height equals 5.6. Using variables makes your code more flexible and easier to manage, as you can change the values stored in them without altering the rest of the program. This concept is similar to the memory function on a calculator, where you can store and recall values as needed. When naming variables in Python, there are specific rules to follow to ensure your code runs correctly. Use letters, numbers, and underscores, but the name must start with a letter or an underscore, not a number. Avoid using reserved words like class or def as variable names. For example, score, player, name, and level 1 are valid variable names, while second place and def are not. Following these rules helps keep your code clear and error-free, making it easier to read and understand. We can see some further examples of variable names on the screen. Sometimes we do, however, have to think carefully about the names that we give to the variables. For example, first name is a better variable name than var1 because it clearly indicates that the variable stores a first name. This practice makes your code more readable and easier to understand. Therefore, it's a good idea to use variable names which describe the variables that will be held within a variable that you create in your program. Comments are notes you add to your code to explain what it does. They start with a hashtag symbol and are ignored by Python when the code runs. Comments are incredibly useful for making your code easier to understand, both for yourself and others who might read it later. For example, you might write hashtag this program asks for the user's name before a line of code that prints what is your name. Using comments effectively can save you a lot of time and confusion when revisiting your code in the future. Functions are special commands in Python that perform specific tasks. They help you organize your code into reusable blocks. For example, print function displays text on the screen, and the input function gets input from the user. Here's another example. Print enter your age prompts the user to enter their age. Age equals input stores the user's input in a variable, and print you are whatever you typed in for age, years old, displays the age back to the user. Using functions makes your code more modular and easier to manage. In order to understand how this program works, you might want to have a go at typing this code up and running the program to see what input you are prompted to enter and what output you get as a result. You may wish to pause the video while you do this or come back to this after you've finished watching the video. Python is used in various industries for different applications. For instance, NASA uses Python for scientific calculations and space exploration research. Google employs Python for its search engine algorithms and data analysis. Dropbox relies on Python for file storage and sharing services. These examples show how versatile and powerful Python is, making it a valuable skill to learn for many career paths. Let's recap the key points from today's lesson. We started by understanding the basics of Python and its various applications. We learned how to run Python programs in both interactive and script modes. We discussed how to identify and correct syntax errors, and we covered the rules for naming and using variables. Finally, we explored the importance of comments and how to use them effectively. By mastering these fundamentals, you're well on your way to becoming proficient in Python programming. Keep practicing and exploring, and you'll continue to improve. That's it for today's lesson, but if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment section below, and I'll try and get back to you if you have any issues. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next video in this series. Bye for now.